Stay tuned for another exciting story about American veterans as told by the veterans themselves and hosted by Randy Baxter, the host of The Veteran Next Door.
The Veteran Next Door. Here's your host, Randall Baxter.
Everything turn. There is a season turn.
Welcome to The Veteran Next Door. You know, for the past 3 weeks, we've been talking about when war comes home. We've been talking about the problem soldiers have been having when they come back and face the reality of family life and economic life. And that was a 3-week series, and we're starting another 3-week series now called Veterans Treatment Court. We've got several guests here today to talk to us about it, but just before we get started, I want to read something to you. This is from an article in a magazine called The American Veteran, and it was the winter of 2014. And it's written by Michael Brennan. And just this one paragraph, I think, sets the tone for the whole story. Many of our country's Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have returned home in hopes of finding comfort and rest among their loved ones and a civilian lifestyle. Unfortunately, they are still finding themselves engaged in a daunting battle against the effects of post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, substance abuse, and depression. Finding themselves entwined in the criminal justice system seems to be an increasingly common result. And our guest today is Mr. Ed Janad. Good morning, Ed.
Morning, Randy.
You're going to be helping us, and we're going to go through all this today.
Right.
We're going to break it down in segments so that you understand it. But right now, we're going to take a little break. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll be right back.
The Veteran Next Door will return in a moment.
Sun up on a cool, sweet morning. Sausage frying in the pan. Make that sausage always Wamplers. It's the finest in the land. Wamplers, Wamplers, it's great sausage made on the farm in Tennessee. Don't say sausage, just say Wamplers for the best in quality. Make that sausage always Wamplers. It's the best in quality.
Energize, detoxify, and hydrate 6 times faster with Hydrate Alkaline Ionized Water. Hydrate is available at the Veteran Next Door store at 4812 Asheville Highway and also available at your local Knoxville area Walgreens. Bottled at the source in Dandridge, Tennessee, this natural spring water and effective antioxidant reduces acid waste, hydrates cells quickly, and tastes delicious. Hydrate is a veteran-owned business and a proud sponsor of the Veteran Next Door. For more information about Hydrate Alkaline Ionized Water and the benefits it provides, visit www.historicsprings.com. That's historicsprings.com. Try it today.
Statements not evaluated by the FDA nor meant to replace your doctor.
Now back to the Veteran Next Door.
Welcome back to The Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter. You know, in the past year or so, I've had the opportunity to meet a group of American veterans that I'm very proud to associate with. Y'all need to know that up front. But, you know, these guys don't normally wait on big bureaucracies to act. They see a problem and they seek to go out and solve it, and very proud to know them. So I'm going to let Mr. Ed Janad tell us what the topic is today, and he's here with Mr. Freddie Owens, and you've heard him before, so you guys take off.
All right. Thanks, Randy. We also have Frank Vollmer here. He's our co-chair of the Veterans Treatment Court, and that's the topic of today. January 17, 2013, there was a TV story about veteran treatment courts in the country and how successful, hands down, than any other court in the country. And so we made a motion on January 17th to look into it. Before we know it, we went from January 17th to April 18th, and not only did we look into it, we realized we needed it. So our council agreed to form a Veterans Treatment Court committee to see if we could go ahead and establish one here in East Tennessee. We did that, and in May 3rd, Steve Perella from the Knoxville Vet Center introduced us to the Knox County Drug Court Director, Ron Hanover. And we sat down and met with him, and we talked about initiating a Veterans Treatment Court here in Knoxville. And we had a particular problem with not only starting one, but because our council, we represent 10 counties. So what we had to look at is how not only to start a Veterans Treatment Court, but how to do that in the surrounding counties. So we had a couple of issues there, but we were really thrilled about the success rates of it. Things went fast, as you said. We don't stand around and wait. Everybody jumped on board. We needed to get approval from the drug court judge, and his name's Honorable Judge Searney. Ron's agreed to go talk to him and Judge Swart to find out if they thought this is something they might want to get into.
One thing, can you just tell me exactly what it is what a veteran treatment court is?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, Randy. For those who know anything about treatment courts, drug courts started 25 years ago in Miami-Dade, Florida. And they've been successful. This is the 25th year anniversary. And treatment courts and recovery courts have made a significant difference in the country. And so what they do is treat rather than incarcerate, or try to. And what Honorable Robert Russell in 2006 in Buffalo, New York, what he did is he was running his recovery court with all the success, but he had a veteran in there. And it wasn't working right for him. So he went to a Vietnam veteran, a member of his staff named Jack O'Connor, and they sat down and talked about what's the issue. I mean, so as a veteran to veteran, he came back into the court, and he was standing at attention. He had a different attitude. This is the justice-involved veteran. And as a result of that, the judge said, this is working. This is working better than our recovery courts. And so in January 2008, Judge Robert Russell in Buffalo, New York, started a Veterans Treatment Court. Now, the significant difference between recovery courts, drug court, and our Veterans Treatment Court is the mentor portion of it. So we have combat veterans who act as a mentor to the participants. And right now, how many is there right now, Frank? There's about 130 Veterans Treatment Courts in the country?
Yes.
And their success is, and the difference between the recovery court and the Veterans Treatment Court is the mentors. And that's what makes the difference. Second Veterans Treatment Court up in Buffalo, Rochester, New York, Honorable John Swart says it best. We have a culture of military participants, and if we deal with them and understand their traumas, their depression, their experiences, we have a better opportunity to make them successful.
You know, Ed, I don't know if you remember this or not, but about 6 or 8 months ago, we were talking about the Veterans Treatment Court, and I asked a question. I was real surprised. And again, I'm not a veteran, so I wanted to, look at it from my viewpoint. And I think I asked you all the question: if two men commit a crime that's equal, are we saying that the veteran will be treated differently?
No. The veteran they're not treated special. The veteran has special needs. Okay. And that's the difference between the courts. So if you go to a recovery court and you don't have a military person as a mentor, you won't understand what trauma is. You want to talk about that, Fred or Frank? So that with a special need to understand depression, PTSD, and things like that, mm-hmm. A lot of the reasons that veterans are involved with the justice system is because 50% of them are homeless. They have substance abuse or a mental disorder. And those mental disorders and the substance abuse is usually as a result of the trauma.
Not 50% of veterans, but 50% percent of veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the difference. We're not special, and we're not treated specially. We have special needs, and veterans understand that. And the people in Veterans Treatment Court do a good job of that. And Robert Russell and Honorable John Schwartz, they tell that. They're in charge of their courts, and they understand the military culture. And that's the way the mission is, to make that veteran successful, to turn them back into society and make them a full person and not have them incarcerated because of his previous experience in combat.
Mm-hmm. Freddie just handed me a chart here, and it had the and we don't need to go into it too deeply until maybe after the commercial, but it talks about outcomes with adversarial legal system versus outcomes with a collaborative legal system. Is that something we can talk about pretty well?
Well, what you have here is that the majority of those individuals who are military, who have gone through the legal system, they have a tendency to get out of that system and they come right back into it. And the recidivism rate in those concerns is about 90%, compared to about 2% of the Veteran Treatment Court. And you notice there in the outlay, it tells you exactly what's expected of those individuals and how the procedure will go. So the only thing we're trying to do is to make sure that these individuals don't fall by the wayside. And that's why the mentor portion of the Veteran Treatment Court is probably the most important part of the court system itself. They have someone there 24/7 that they're getting problems. They have a problem with themselves or their families, that they know they can pick up that phone and they can call that mentor, and that individual is going to be there, Johnny on the spot for them.
Okay, we're going to have to go to a break here in just a minute, but in the next segment, can we talk about some of the numbers and how big the numbers are and what the purpose is and why we think the mentor program will be more effective?
Yes.
Okay. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter. We've got some wonderful veterans here talking to us about a problem that's all across this country. And we'll be right back.
The Veteran Next Door will return in a moment.
You're listening to The Veteran Next Door Radio, hosted by Randall Baxter. Be sure to check out theveterannextdoor.com to shop online for episodes of The Veteran Next Door, information on veterans benefits, or to find you or your family's military records.
Seniors Helping Seniors, an in-home services company for seniors by seniors. We offer just the services you need to remain independent and living in your own home. The type of services we provide are companionship, housekeeping, meal preparation, transportation, doctor visits, and much more. We provide these services with other caring and compassionate seniors. When these services are provided by other active seniors who really understand what your life is like as a senior, it can make a big difference. We want to keep you independent. We want to keep you safe. We want to bring a little joy to your life. Call Seniors Helping Seniors in-home services today. Find out how we can make a big difference for you or a loved one. Call 865-269-4483. That's 865-269-4483. Seniors Helping Seniors in-home services.
Now back to the Veteran Next Door.
Welcome back to the Veteran Next Door Live. I'm your host, Randy Baxter. Our veterans are coming home from war and they're having difficulties adjusting, and sometimes they get in trouble. Frank, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there statistically?
Sure, Randy. Statistically, there was a study done at the end of 2013 here, and of approximately 250,000 veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, nearly 30% are diagnosed with PTSD, and at least 100,000 of them are suffering from demons of PTSD that have caused them to become involved with the criminal justice system. Now, in Orange County, California, Veterans Treatment Court have established some fantastic results when you compare them to the regular criminal court system. Since the inception in 2008, Orange County has a recidivism rate in their criminal court system of 74%.
Let's explain recidiv. That's a big word.
Recidivism rates indicate how many times criminals, once they're discharged or have completed their sentence, are brought back into the system on additional charges.
Okay.
Now, 28% go through the Orange County Veterans Treatment Court system. They've got a recidivism rate of less than 10%.
Frank, the 28% was the Orange County Drug Court. And I was telling you how much more successful than they are than a regular general sessions court. So you see a big difference, 74% to 28%. But since 2008 out in Orange County, they've dropped that down in our VTC's, Veterans Treatment Court, to less than 10%, as Frank just said. So you could see the dramatic difference, and the difference is in the mentor portion.
Okay, and what does a mentor do?
Mentors work individually with those veterans that are in the legal system again. We act as sponsors to them. We try to give them guidance, support, try to keep them interested in the program. We stress that it's important for them to be successful too, for all veterans. Because we share the comradeship that they often experienced while they were in service, that gives the mentors and the mentees a closer bond that in most cases recovery courts don't have. It's a veteran working with a veteran to achieve success in navigating the system. The Veterans Treatment Court allows us to take the veterans into programs that the Veterans Administration can offer, which generally may not be accessible to non-veterans that are in other recovery court programs.
Okay, and you say a mentor. Is a mentor a volunteer?
Yes.
So mentors don't get paid?
No, none of us get paid. We do this on our own time. Generally, what it involves is spending maybe one day a week for a couple hours attending a court session with the justice-involved veteran, maintaining phone contact several times during the week, maybe getting together for coffee, visiting a veteran while they're either at their home or in one of the recovery program meetings, or even just having coffee with the family.
I'm not sure who needs to answer this, but if I was a veteran and I was spending my first few minutes in this system and they introduced me to a mentor, how do I know you're qualified to handle me?
Well, that's a great question. And December of 2013, the National Association of Drug Court Professionals sponsored, along with Justice for Vets, which is a division of the NADCP, they hosted the first Veteran Treatment Court Convention in Washington, D.C. And part of that convention and conference was a boot camp for mentors. So they brought the training courts. There's 4 veteran treatment courts in the country, training courts. It's Buffalo, New York first. They all started in 2008. Rochester, New York, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Orange County. And Jack O'Connor is one of the first, or he is the first mentor coordinator. He and others were running a boot camp. And we're really lucky. How many graduated? There's something like 90, right?
90 graduated the boot camp in December.
Yeah, and 90 from all across the country. And we are so blessed because 3 of us out of the 90 are right here from Knoxville. So it's Frank Vollmer, Dean Powell, and myself. So we're certified national mentor, VTC mentors.
And I heard you mention a little bit about Dean Powell, and he's got a special role.
He's You heard him 2 weeks ago? No, I think he was on the show last Saturday, and he talked about how his traumas. He's a great hero. He did 2 tours in Vietnam. He was in recon, and you heard a story. He wound up in jail for 7 years, and he's jumping all in. He started In Focus Ministry, and once he heard about our initiative and the mentor, he jumped all in. And January of this year, we received our first Justice Involved veteran, and Frank is one of our senior mentors, and he took on Jeff, right?
Yes.
And we got our second veteran involved, and Dean Powell's his mentor, and Mark joined us about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Well, and both veterans are doing excellent in the program. The drug court authorities and the judge are very pleased with their progress. They've identified them as actually being leaders among the group of the other recovery court attendees.
Okay. Ed, you were telling me some numbers before we started the show this morning, as far as how many veterans are in prison, or that maybe we don't even know how many veterans there are in prison, or But when you start throwing numbers at me, I was sitting there, and I think I asked you the question: how many American Army divisions are in prison right now? And I know some corps are 10,000.
Yeah. Maybe Tom could figure out how many divisions once I give him the numbers.
Okay.
But that's an interesting point that you raised. So when we started this initiative, one of the first questions the VA asked us is, how many veterans are in prison? How many veterans are in jail? When we were meeting with Ron Hanover, they didn't ask that question. When Freddie Owens went to Police Chief Rouse, we asked the question, how many veterans are in there? You asked the question. We went to Randy Nichols. We went to, what's the sheriff's name?
Ron Seals in Sevier County.
Sevier County. Nobody was asking the question. So we're blessed. So our first success in our initiative, we identified nobody asked that question. Now, in all the counties and all the agencies we just talked about, they're now on their intake form asked the question. Not if you're a veteran, we ask the question, have you served in the military? And that, you might ask us, why are we asking that question? Because most young veterans don't consider themselves veterans. They have to have white hair like myself. Mm-hmm. And so what we realized, if you ask the question of a young man or woman, they might say no. So the better question to ask is, have you served in the military? And we are proud and we are thankful for Randy Nichols and Sheriff Seal and Ron and Chief Rouse, because now they ask the question.
Do we have any idea about Knox County, about the numbers in Knox County yet? Or?
No, because there's no history
There's
of it,
no
right?
history.
Nobody was collecting that data. And so just 2013 we started doing it.
And then but nationally, do we know the numbers on nationally?
Well, yeah, we just the same article you opened the show with.
Uh-huh.
Here's a crazy statistic. It blew me away this morning when I was reading it. So far, 247,000, nearly 30% of the 835,000 Iraqi and Afghanistan war veterans treated at the VA hospitals and clinics have been diagnosed with PTSD, which suggests at least, as Frank said, 100,000 of them are suffering from PTSD and have become involved in a criminal justice system.
100,000?
100,000 of the 250,000 SANS veterans have been diagnosed. And the scary part about it, Frank, is that's only the veterans that went to the VA.
Right.
How many of them are out there just like us that never go for it?
It's estimated that only about a third of today's veterans ever go to the VA for treatment. And that's why we're looking at the difference, and the need now is so much greater. A lot of Vietnam veterans, when we went over to Vietnam, we served 1 year and came home. Some may have gone back on a second tour. Today's Iraqi and Afghan vets often go over for 9-month stints, but they have 4 and 5 deployments, which is tough on them individually as well as their families. So we're looking at trying to institute programs through the Veterans Treatment Court as well as community programs to try to help the families as well.
Here's a recent report. It's very sad. It's a report done in 2009 from the Naval Health Research Center in San Diego, one of the largest bases in the country. They identified 78,000 enlisted Marines with at least one combat deployment. This is the SANS warriors. And it demonstrated that those Marines with a diagnosis of PTSD are 6 times more likely to be arrested on drug charges. 6 times more likely than Marines without PTSD. And here's one that just, it's so sad. And are 11 times more likely to be discharged for misconduct.
Okay, 6 times more likely to be arrested on drug charges.
Self-medicating most times.
Okay. So
self-medicating. The majority of us have PTSD, have battled that for decades for the Vietnam era veterans. And
what would a soldier use to self-medicate? Would it be
alcohol
or
like Dean? He did 2 tours. He liked drugs and just to get rid of the pain. I don't want to feel about it. A lot of Vietnam vets never had any place to go to get help. They do now, but they didn't then.
And something else I learned now, a soldier coming home might not seek treatment because he doesn't think he needs treatment. And what I've learned is a lot of soldiers, the post-traumatic stress disorder develops over time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's post-traumatic.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So they're out of contact with the military?
Yep. So they come back, they're out of contact. Most of us never thought anything was wrong.
Right. The military was our support system, and then all of a sudden you get separated or discharged, and you lose that support system.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And you try to reintegrate yourself into society, and oftentimes they're not veterans. They don't know the issues you're facing. They don't understand why you may have emotional outbursts, why you may have depression, why you may have some family issues that cause strains, part of which may be the deployments themselves on a relationship in a marriage or with their children. Today's veterans are still in denial, the way Vietnam veterans were for so many years, that they needed help or that they had these issues and that they could have been service-related.
Okay. I believe we have somebody that wants to say something here. Who's your other guest here, Ed?
Tom Gage.
Hey, good morning. I've been a Vietnam veteran. One of the things that the Vietnam veteran differed from our present-day veterans who are going into combat is the fact that they went individually into Vietnam to those units that were already pre-existent in the combat zone. When the present-day soldiers rotate, they rotate as a unit. So it sometimes causes a different friction within because of the fact that you feel as you come back with a unit and nobody should be hurt, hopefully, that you did your job, you came back together, and hey, you can pat each other on the back. The Vietnam veteran, on the other hand, he didn't have that. He came back individually, and he got his steak dinner when he hit the States, got his greens, and was let loose with his discharge or his leave papers and pay, and had to deal with it himself. And it's so imperative that that help is there for them. And a lot of the individuals were able to get through it who didn't leave the military and made a career of it. But in their situation, the Vietnam vet could not feel comfortable seeking help because the programs that exist today didn't exist back then. And as a result, the Vietnam veterans, they feel that this was something that was in the AMVET magazine, which is called the American Veteran, Winter 214. And this article was written by a Michael Brennan. And in that particular, he talked about a study that was done, and they interviewed Vietnam veterans, a National Vietnam Veterans Readjustment Study. And in that particular, they estimated that half of all combat veterans with PTSD from that war had been arrested one or more times. And the situation today is even worse because of the fact that there are all these multiple rotations. The average combat veteran today has a situation where he is rotated 3 or 4 more times. On the other hand, the Vietnam veteran, he was over there for 12 months. And it's even increased beyond the 3 to 4 or more times the rotations are present day. You've got the special ops, your Ranger battalions, you've got the special forces, the SEALs, and other special ops that are going over there on rotations that have numbered more than 11 or 12. So they have estimated that the problem is going to be even greater than what was taking place with the Vietnam vet. And so it's imperative that you realize these things and don't let yourself be trapped in it. We all came back. Some of us handle it differently. The key thing is to prevent yourself from getting into the court system, you need to first contact your fellow vet, contact the vets who have experienced it, and the help that's available to you.
You know, it's an amazing story that it seems to me like a veteran may come home and after a couple of months maybe sit down and drink too many beers and wind up just in more trouble than he ever thought about, when all he was really trying to do was maybe relieve a little pain or a little isolation or a little depression, and then wham bam, he needs a lawyer. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll be right back.
The Veteran Next Door will return in a moment.
In a world of rising medical costs and shrinking retirement accounts, many vets are concerned about preserving their precious assets, and some are struggling to provide for the basic personal care they need at a time in their lives when they need it the most. Fortunately, as thanks from a grateful nation, our government created the Non-Service Connected Disability Pension with aid and attendance. It provides qualified veterans and their surviving spouses with a tax-free monthly pension to help defray the cost of long-term care for those who need in-home care, assisted living, or skilled nursing care.
I hope you listen to that ad. Call me on the phone if you've got problems with VA benefits as far as this non-service related disability benefit with aid and attendance. You know, that number is 865-525-2323. But, I want to tell you why. There are 3 ways to learn about your veteran benefits for this particular benefit. One is through your VSO officer at the VA, or you may learn about it from an attorney, or you may call a volunteer veteran advocate like myself. I think it's important that you know the difference between the 3 roles. First of all, the veteran service officers are good guys, and they represent the VA, and they represent you. But you have to remember they are not licensed to give you the proper financial advice to qualify yourself before you present yourself to the Veterans Administration. For that reason, since they cannot give you advice on what to do because they are not licensed, they have to look at you as you are when you walk in the door. That's causing a lot of people to be told that they don't qualify for that benefit. The next issue is attorneys. I'm what's called, again, a volunteer veteran advocate. But you need to know I have the proper licenses to give you the advice that you need to qualify for this benefit. This means that I can tell you whether you even need an attorney or not for your application. Many attorneys are charging veterans up to $400 for the first interview to tell them whether or not they need an attorney. So this is the important part. Your volunteer veteran advocate who has the proper licenses can save you in legal bills and can save you a declination from the Veterans Administration, and it's absolutely free. So why would you pay an attorney, or why would you go to someone who does not have the proper licenses to give you the proper advice before you talk to a volunteer veteran advocate? So if you are a veteran, the surviving spouse of a veteran, or a family member of a veteran who may need these services, call Randall Baxter, 865-525-2323, and schedule an interview. Again, it's absolutely free to get the proper advice that you need. Again, 865-525-2323. I hope to talk to you today.
Now back to the Veteran Next Door.
Welcome back to the Veteran Next Door. You know, in our conversation this morning, I've been kind of thinking, let me just throw a situation out at you and see what you guys think. We have a veteran who comes home from his third tour, maybe finds out that he's either got marital problems, or he finds out that the company that he used to work for no longer exists. In his self-treatment, he maybe purchases a few drugs that he should have prescriptions for that he doesn't. He finds out that relieves him of his pain, and he realizes he doesn't have any more money, so he decides to sell a few of those drugs in order to pay for his drugs, and wham, bam, he's in the jail. Is that a veterans court prospect?
Yes, it is. In many cases, some of the veterans in combat situations may be on antidepressants. They may be on some pain medications if they're recovering from injuries sustained in combat or while on active duty. They don't have to be combat. It could be a truck accident. It could be a training incident, anything like that. But when they come home and those drugs aren't as readily available, then unfortunately they look to either alcohol or street drugs to take place of that. The Veterans Treatment Court, what we try to do is take that into consideration. And the VA has developed a specific office, a Veterans Justice Officer, a VJO, that we are getting into our Veterans Treatment Court here in Knox County that will help ease the transition of the legal or justice-involved veteran into the Veterans Treatment Court program as well, in that any VA services that may help them in the recovery, the VJO is going to facilitate that considerably. We also rely on our state and county service officers in providing filing claims, looking into programs that may benefit the veterans, and anything that we can do to help in the recovery is our primary goal. The mentor, in many cases, may have a disability or have had a veterans claim themselves. And that's what makes it so much more effective in having a mentor work with a justice-involved veteran in navigating the VA system and the benefits programs.
All right. Hey, thanks, Frank. And there's about 130 veteran treatment courts in the country. And the majority of them have VJOs, as Frank talked about. That's Veteran Justice Outreach Specialist. Now, they have two different jobs, really. They come from the Homeless Department at Washington, D.C., and they certainly facilitate veterans treatment courts around the country and are a very important component. But they're not the only one. And what we found was, when we asked the question earlier, how many veterans are in jail? Nobody knows. Well, a veteran justice outreach specialist, that's his or her job. They're supposed to identify every veteran in jail or prison. That's their job, and to help them out. Now, we are lucky in our council, through our advocacy, we've been trying to get a VJO, and when we went to Washington, D.C., we were so blessed to meet our Colonel Will Gunn, and through Frank's efforts and Will Gunn, they provided us funding, and we're one of the first in the country to have a VJO assigned to a clinic. And we have a very large clinic, so we're really blessed to have a VJO.
That's here in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Knoxville, Tennessee, yep.
Great,
so,
that's great.
We're really blessed to have that. And I'd really be remiss to not talk about Honorable Chuck Sierney. You know, for those who were at the convention, and anybody knows about Honorable Robert Russell, who started the whole mission, Chuck Sierney's our Robert Russell. He's got such compassion. Now, I learned a new statistic participating in the Knox County Recovery Court, along with Ron and Chuck Sierney. NADCP learned that if a judge talks to a participant 2 minutes or more, they're 50% more successful rate than not. Our judge talks at least 5 to 10 minutes to each one. It's incredible. Not only to the veterans, but his recovery court.
Okay.
Right now, we only have 3 in our system, so our track is at the end of the Wednesday recovery court. I'd like to introduce a person that most of you heard last weekend. His name's J.L. Tucker. He's a peer facilitator for Legacy Peer Support Group. He's our vice president. Boy, are we lucky to have him for Vet to Vet Tennessee. And he's going to be our voice of our 3 affiliations. So he's got so much love and compassion for everybody. Everyone should have a JL. Go ahead, JL.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for that introduction. I want to thank you, Randy, for having me again. And I want to give you my heartfelt thanks for what you're doing for our veterans.
You're welcome.
You know, these guys did so much so far away from home so many years ago and come back and never asked for anything back. And I was so fortunate. I went through the alcohol in the mid-'80s. I didn't realize anything was wrong until the mid-'80s. And I was so blessed to find this group here, Dr. Richardson, Legacy Peer Support Group. Your listeners out there, I urge them to get their families to listen to this show so they know veterans out there that needs help that don't know how to get it. And I know they can call you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been a blessing to be asked to be just a little part of this. I just can't tell you how much I love these guys and all of our brothers as far as that goes. And the more I get into this, the more enthusiastic I get. This has been fascinating to listen to this morning. I'm going to have to ask Ed, though, to send me these facts on paper because I can't remember anything. But I just can't say enough and thank you guys enough for having me and letting me speak. And, of course, I can't get on the air without saying something about my personal Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I pray that these lost vets will have a little talk with Jesus and give him a chance to come into their lives. And I'm not trying to preach. I know you can't preach religion to anybody. But he sure guided me to the right place. And I just can't stand to miss our meetings. Or now we're getting into these bicycles and lawnmowers, getting them for our vets to fix up, to give them something to do.
Mm-hmm. And
I urge them to come in and get cleaned up. And I'd like to urge the employers out there, if you need to help, hire a vet. Think about hiring a vet. They'll stand behind you like we did one another in Vietnam. And now Iraq and Afghanistan is coming along too.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, you were at Ia Drang in Vietnam, is that correct?
Well, I was in Pleiku.
Pleiku.
Freddie was in Ia Drang,
okay.
But I received the KIAs.
Oh, okay.
I was one of them that received the KIAs at Pleiku.
Oh my gosh!
Out of the eye drain valve.
Yeah.
And it was horrifying.
That left a wound of a different kind.
Oh, I can still see it.
I know. I understand.
I still squall, cry.
Okay. Thank you so much for your service. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll be right back.
The Veteran Next Door will return in a moment.
Stories told and retold from the battlefronts of America's wars by the veterans themselves. The Veteran Next Door. You love the show. Now, get the book. World War II, Volume 1, 1939 to 1946. Read about how our veterans attempted to free children trapped by fascist countries. Learn about the supermen we sent to liberate the world from the crimes of World War II. Stories of Pacific land battles on the land and the sea, battles in Europe, land in the air, survival in the ocean, when a ship sinks and one breaks in half. Soldiers who deserve the Medal of Honor. And read the story of the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, when many soldiers came home and had to deal with a corrupt county government and prove the need for our Second Amendment. Stories told and retold from the battlefronts of America's wars. Be sure to get your copy at Amazon.com. The Veteran Next Door. Stories from World War II, Volume 1, 1939 through 1946. Don't miss one word of The Veteran Next Door.
You know, I do want to talk to you a little bit about the book I've written, The Veteran Next Door, 1939 to 1946. You know, it's interesting how sales are going on the book. You know, I'm getting orders for 4, 5, and 6 copies for a family. And people are starting to say, you know, I want my children to learn about World War II without all the battles and without all the generals and everything. Just learn about World War II from the people who were involved. You can go to Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble and order the book, but for the same price and get autographed copies for you and or members of your family. You can call my office at 865-525-2323 and get your autographed copy today. Just call 865-525-2323.
Now back to The Veteran Next Door.
This is from the Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law. For the returning combat veteran who has had exposure to events that take place only in war, transitioning back to a civilian life is not simple. Veterans returning home from a combat zone experience an array of post-deployment adjustments, and for returning Afghanistan and Iraq veterans, that includes the derailing physical and mental impact of combat stress and traumatic brain injury. As a result, returning service members are at increased risk of engaging in unsafe behavior such as reckless driving, heavy drinking, and other risk-taking, and to have a sense of invincibility. These tendencies, if ignored, could lead to negative consequences for the veteran both in the home and work setting, and although these veterans are generally law-abiding, their post-deployment behavior leads some to run afoul of the law and straight into the judicial system. Veterans courts represent a mechanism for combat veterans who become involved in the justice system to engage with a system that is not punitive or adversarial, but collaborative and that seeks to work toward a more effective resolution of problems. Moreover, these courts recognize the role of combat stress and related disorders in returning war veterans as a source of behavior that leads them to be in conflict with the law. Ed, our veterans are running into problems they didn't know were ahead of them when they come home from war. Can you tell us what's going on or what else we need to say today?
Well, once again, we talk about why the mentors are so important in a recovery court. And it's because of the military culture. And the mentors probably have a harder job than the participants, because their job is to make sure every veteran's successful. And we put a lot of pressure on you, just don't we, Frank? And but boy, are we so blessed with so much support. As I mentioned, Chuck Sierney, Honorable Judge Chuck Sierney, is just such a great judge. He's going to make the difference in our county here. And we couldn't ask for a better judge. And what I'd like to say, Randy, is they talk about military culture. We started this initiative just to look into it January 17th of last year. Not only did we get trained as national mentors by the Justice for Vets, but we also had our first veteran in our Veterans Treatment Court, January 2014. In 1 year, we created a vision into a completed mission. Wow. And if veterans, we do pre-pleas and post-pleas. So we're getting to more public defenders and lawyers. And so if any veterans involved in the judicial system right now, and they think they might be interested in joining our Veterans Treatment Court, I would suggest the first thing you do is contact your lawyer. And you always get your lawyer. Don't forget your family, too, because you're not the only one that's having the trauma. And but if you want to get some questions or answers about our court, I recommend that you call Ron Hanover, and he's at the Knox County Veterans Treatment Court, and his telephone number is 865-659-6352. And he'll be more than happy to at least guide you through our procedures.
Repeat that phone number real quick.
Area code 865-659-6352.
Okay. So, folks, you've heard some of the story. We're going to be continuing this over the next couple of weeks. It's Veterans Treatment Court. It's needed. It's wanted. You're listening to Veteran Next Door. I'm your host, Randy Baxter, and we'll see you next week.
I never was a soldier, but I played one as a child. History was good to me. I grew up free and wild.
You've been listening to Randall Baxter and the Veteran Next Door.